So my question is really for other people, on behalf of other people, because my house is quite sustainable. It's got east and north facing double glazed windows. But if you're retrofitting a house, can you bash a hole in the north side of that? Is that included in your retrofitting so that people with old houses can get some north sun, which makes just a huge difference?
Yes,
I'll
Matt.
have a crack. I've done that, Steffi.
Have you?
And it's so effective that if I've got the heat going, because it's a cold day, the sun comes out from behind the cloud, all of a sudden the place is too hot.
Right, yeah.
Because it traps so much extra sun.
So you're complaining about the place being too comfortable in winter?
Well, uncomfortably warm. But that's rare. But you know, when the sun comes out, it's a dramatic difference to the ambience of the house.
So is that part of your retrofitting?
It wasn't part of the trial that Sustainability Victoria ran, but it's a great, I mean, if you do have the budget to put in extra windows or reorientate the layout of your house, then definitely putting in, I did that, I created a sunroom, turned a dingy bedroom into a sunroom at my place, and it's the best room in the house in winter. So yeah, it's a huge improvement, but it's expensive.
It's called, rather than retrofit, Steffi, it's called a renovation.
And can you fund that?
Is it?
Can it be
I've done
funded?
it too in an old
Can it be
farmhouse.
funded by
By your
government?
program, yeah.
No.
Okay.
But there is that, there's that federal grant for new building projects, but I think you have to spend over 150 grand, so it's
What?
it's
What?
been
To
a
get the
window.
north?
Yeah, if you want. That's all cost of training down here.
I'll do it. The federal government requires you to spend that much money to get
Okay, question down here, please.
Eric Johansson. Andrea, on your slide you showed that there's a rebate for hot water systems and for the air conditioner as well.
Yeah.
Question is, if you've already had a solar rebate, can you still get the hot water?
The rebate is for Victorian energy upgrades, and that's separate to Solar Victoria rebates.
Okay.
So if you can find, the thing with Victorian energy upgrades and the subsidy that you can claim for those upgrades, you need to find a tradie locally that's connected with that scheme.
So it's the trade here. Because I got knocked back, that's why I need to just verify.
Oh, you got knocked back by Solar Victoria?
No, by the tradie we were going to do. He said, oh no, you can't do that. If you've got solar rebate, he said you won't get a rebate on hot water.
Right. That doesn't sound
Julie's got some experience in
I'm an
Richmond.
outsider, but my understanding is they're separate programs.
Fantastic.
Julie?
Yep, I did it last year, so I got my solar panels on through the SOS Otway program,
Yep.
and then like September last year I got a heat pump hot water system. Not a solar hot water,
No.
but a heat pump hot water system, and there were both, there was certainly a Victorian rebate for that, and then you got STC through.
We need your training. Can you tell people who you're from?
I've got it done through Middleton.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, good information, thank you.
There's one that isn't.
Peter?
To Andrea, did Sustainability Victoria consider film on windows and how effective that may or may not have been with regard to heat transmission through the windows?
We did publish a technical paper on film on windows, and I believe that it does create some energy savings, but they're quite, like if you've got dogs or cats or, I don't think
They can.
that's not my area, but yeah.
I can add a bit. There's actually a website called wers.net.au, Window Energy Rating Scheme, WERS, .net, not .com. And they actually have a rating scheme for window films, which looks at the summer and the winter performance, and it's got a star rating, so the more stars. And what you find is most of the films that are available in Australia actually are really designed to cut summer heat, not so much winter, but some of them do a very good job on winter as well as summer. But it's like you've got to look at the summer and winter performance. What that rating table also tells you is the percentage of visible light that is allowed in through it, because some of them do absorb quite a lot of the light, but others are nearly transparent. So that rating website is really useful, and it will give you a good sense of the benefits. And the best of the winter performing films, as long as the cats and dogs don't damage them, or the children peel them off, basically are almost as good as double glazing a window, as long as there's no condensation on the window, because the condensation bypasses the performance of the films. But yeah, so they can be quite good, and yeah, look, it's a lot cheaper than replacing a window. There are also some add-on, and I think these might be eligible for Victorian Energy Upgrades. There's some like add-on plastic sheets that you can, they've got like magnetic strips around them. One of them is called magnetite. And so you can get them to clip onto your windows on the inside, and they are like double glazing. There's also companies around who do what they call secondary windows, where they actually put basically another window within your window frame on the inside. A lot of them are promoted for noise reduction rather than energy savings, but again, they can be like double glazing, so you can actually get a noise benefit and improve winter comfort from them. So there's a few options there.
Okay, I'd like to, I'm allowed to ask questions, just in case you're wondering. I'd like to bring the councillors into the conversation and just ask Dorothy Dixer, and I hope you don't mind me putting you on the spot, but does the local council provide any assistance to ratepayers to undertake retrofitting work or any other energy efficiency initiatives that you're aware of?
Council has a grants program each year, a community grants program, and at the moment it's providing grants for energy efficiency projects for commercial premises. As I understand it, is that right?
Yeah, that's right, for business and also
for business, but not for homes at the moment. But next time we get to look at these grants, because the conditions for these grants come up, we'll probably look further at what can be done.
And last year, in response to the climate emergency petition, council said that it was committed to helping the community reduce their emissions, but there there's no policy or anything beyond that. But I think that sets a framework for if you're going to have this sort of great grand statement. And it also follows on now that council's carbon neutral across its own operations, but the next step is to put into action something to actually help and promote so the community can become carbon neutral.
I think that's something SOS could pick up on, don't you think, boss?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Somebody would like to pick that up?
There's so many handballs going on here.
Can I just say that Graham and Stephen both came along to our roadmap engagement process, and both have been very proactive. In fact, Stephen went back to council and argued for the grants process to include something for efficiency in response to hearing the experts in the roadmap process. So they've both been great supporters of what we're trying to do, and we're blessed to have them in council.
So that program that Graham mentioned for the business, that's only been in place for about 12 months or so.
Yeah. That's the first year.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
A question for Alan. I see you use 4.6 kilowatts a day on average off the grid.
Yep.
How do you heat your hot water? What's your hot plate?
Yep.
And do you use any gas in the system?
Right. No, well, I've consciously gone off gas to save myself $300 a year fixed charging. So, okay, I'm a bit quirky, you know. So first of all, there's one person in this house, although I work from home all the time. I have a heat pump water heater, one of the Japanese carbon dioxide refrigerant ones. There's only a couple of brands that do that.
Is that a standard?
Well, mine is the standard, but there's another one called Reclaim, which is, I believe, comes out of the same factory. Anyway, yeah, so there's a couple. One of the strengths of the Reclaim one is that actually it's got a more user-friendly programming thing to run it during the day than the solars run it. So have a look. So anyway, so that's hot water. Yeah, I've got a reverse cycle air conditioning. In fact, I have 3. But they don't use very much power because they're very efficient ones, and because my building is probably a bit better than 6 stars. So I have upgraded the building a fair bit over time. It's a 1969 place. But, you know. And then for cooking, I actually have 2 of the portable induction cooktops that you can buy at, you know, appliance shops, because I don't like it. The problem we have is that my house was designed for gas, and so the power cable coming into my house and the power of the wiring is not all that strong. And so I worked out, I actually have 2 separate circuits coming into my kitchen. So I've got a plug-in induction cooktop plugged into each circuit. And that works fine. You know, I've got 2 hot plates plus a microwave and an electric oven that I use. So that's all. So basically, I'm all electric with efficient technologies. And, you know, look, I do weird things like I cook in bulk, you know. I don't like cooking every night, so I cook kind of twice a week and freeze stuff, and then I have variety out of the freezer. And by the way, I take the food out the night before and defrost it in the fridge, because it actually reduces the energy consumption of the fridge by absorbing heat as it defrosts, right? So I'm right into this. But yeah, so that's what I do.
Yeah, and what about solar and battery?
Well, until recently, my excuse for not having rooftop solar was that I live in a block of units, and Unit 1 has built up a very big upper story blocking most of my morning sun, and the other unit on the other side of me has only recently been sold, and we didn't know whether they would want to extend upwards and stuff like that. So I would have had this sort of little corridor of roof. I've had that excuse taken away now, so I'm confronting what to do. I'm really a slow mover on making decisions, so I've got to do it. And I think I probably will put in a small battery, because one of the problems with a normal rooftop solar system is if the power goes out, your system shuts down. So, and not all inverters and batteries will run off the grid, by the way. You've got to be careful. Yeah, look, I'm sort of I'm moving in the right direction. But when, you know, like the average Victorian household about 15 or 20 kilowatt hours a day, and the average electric one's about 25. So I'm kind of at the low end, and I buy lots of carbon offsets and, you know, green fleet and all these other things. So, and I give talks at all these things, and I'm hoping that other people save more because of what I say.
It's a form of offsetting.
Yeah, that's a form. And I work really hard on governments and industry programs and stuff too. So that's my excuse for.
But that brings me to a question I'd like to put to you, the audience. Alan's just talked about being a slow decision maker on this stuff, and I think we'd probably say on that camp too. So what is it that stops you from actually trying to take action on something like energy efficiency in your own home? Is it money? Is it haven't got time? I don't know where to go to get the information? Can you tell us? Because this is something SOS needs to understand if we're going to try and get grants to move things along. Yes?
Yeah, I'm kind of a new homeowner, but one of the things I've been considering is that how long the systems I buy will last, and also sort of the embedded energy in those systems. So if the battery technology continues to get better and better and better, if I wait 3 years, will there be better subsidies and better batteries that will last longer? And will the solar panels in 3 years be that much more efficient? Like, I think that's one of the things that I've talked to a few other people about this, myself as well. It kind of gives you a bit of pause rather than jumping the gun straight away.
Can I answer that, respond to that from personal experience? I want to pick up on a point that Andrew made about getting immediate payback from the quality of life rather than just waiting for the bucks to flow. We had a little cottage up near between Ballan and Dalesford. We were off the grid. When we started to live there, we had kerosene lamps, no electricity at all. And then we put solar on and with batteries. Now, this is going back about 7 years ago now. Those batteries are wet cell batteries, so we had to build a bunker full of them. So we were told we could wait because there's higher technology coming. But when I turned the light on that first night and I could read, I said, this is just brilliant. And I felt like my great-grandmother when she first discovered electricity. So I think there's money in time, you know, there's quality of life in all that time. Anyway, it's just want to throw it out as an idea. Any other questions, please? Yes.
Pam Cuthbertson, Colac / Apollo Bay.
Thanks.
About 11 years ago, a solicitor came to Colac, and she had this type group that we've got here now to try and get everyone in Colac on solar panels. And it was amazing, the response to it. And you could do this in your town if you can't get grants, but it ended up being, you know, half the price sort of thing to put them on because we had buying power. She ended up with 100 people, and in that 100 people, we chose, by having a broadsheet, we could do the electricians and work out whether we get Japanese panels or Swiss panels or German panels. And it was quite efficient. The whole thing was done really, really, you know, you could see it all and you could have your input and output to it. I have had those solar panels on for 11 years and I haven't had an SEC bill. And so much so that we were then subsidising our little house, little cottage here at Apollo Bay because we had credits. But I've since put them on down here, solar panels, and we don't get any bills at all. So if you can get a group and get a bit of a buying power happening, it's far more efficient to do it that way than individual, unless you can get a grant. And the Apollo Bay one, we did get a grant to do that. It was amazing, and I couldn't recommend it more. I like it. It's a little cottage, it's only 2 bedroom, but we don't have bills and we have people staying Airbnb. The other thing too, just my daughter lives at Phillip Island and they put a brand new house, 10 years ago. They put a water pump in, but because the air heat pump, because the air getting sucked in was very full of salt air, it rusted out very, very soon. So,
you have to be.
So they're
as with everything, there are good quality ones and not so good quality ones.
I presume
there are difficult environments.
You're a Melbourne man, aren't you? Not near the sea. Yeah, you.
So Matt, do you want to respond?
Thank you, Pam. So Deb, who's on our committee, was part of that group in Colac all that time ago. And so she encouraged us to do that. In fact, we did that in 2019.
Yes.
And we sold 50, or we had 50 residences put solar on their roof.
Right.
For a total of 250 kilowatts, which was 50% of what we started when we started. And we're doing it again, so on June 1st in this same hall, there'll be a couple of sessions where we reveal the details of another solar bulk buy. It includes batteries, it also includes heat pumps, as people want that, and they're reclaimed heat pumps, which is good news. And it also includes vehicle chargers for the residents if people are interested. So, yeah, I think it's a great initiative and it's the low-hanging fruit, so, yeah.
Well, we're getting rid of our gas heater down here and we're putting in recycled.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm Maria. Matt, as part of that initial program, I thought there was another stage coming too, because the bit that I'm interested in, of course, is especially when I see that screen where a great portion of our community have very low incomes.
Yes.
And how we could then move towards sharing so that those people who are not here all the time can share that electricity with neighbours and with the rest of the community. We can use that bit. So if we're going to be self-sufficient by 2030, I just don't know how we could do that without sharing.
Yeah, you're quite right. As everybody's aware, the sun doesn't shine at night, so you need other facilities to complement these generation facilities. And so what SOS has been doing is exploring this space, and we're well aided by some of the tradies in town like Craig who have more technical knowledge than we do. But you're talking about a microgrid.
Yeah.
And Apollo Bay is ideally suited for a microgrid because we're at the end of two long supply lines. And so we've had some experts share their thoughts on this. It seems like it's a no-brainer, but you've got to establish a business case for that. And there are different ingredients, one of which is a neighbourhood battery, significant neighbourhood battery. So we've just applied for funding for a feasibility study for a neighbourhood battery. We should hear this month whether we were successful in that. But I think microgrids are on their way. I think it saves the distributor a lot of money, which is one of the reasons they'll probably be happening.
There was one put in Malacca.
Yes. So it is happening here and there, and I think towns like Apollo Bay are quite vulnerable to major disasters like a bushfire through the hills, as was Malakuta. So I think there's quite a compelling case even on the basis of energy resilience alone. But we've got to argue that and make enough noise so government knows we're on the map. And part of our roadmap was part of that, so that we can take a document to them and say, look, we've thought this through, we've had advice, etc. So it takes time. Yeah. Great question.
Can I ask another question, probably to Andrew and Alan? We've heard a bit about assessing homes for the efficiency. How do you go about getting an energy assessment?
No. So there is a residential efficiency scorecard that was developed by another agency, Dell. And so that scorecard, it's a high-level assessment that will give you an idea of which upgrades you should prioritise in your house. There's some organisations in the region have done the training to do those scorecard assessments. I do think that there's, how are you proposing, are you looking at doing that?
Yeah, we're looking at doing that. We're proposing to offer these to the community by basically a bulk buy. My understanding is that a scorecard assessment costs in the region of $300, $400, which is well beyond the means of low-income families. So this is another equity issue we want to tackle. So we're thinking, well, what if we got, say, 10 homes who want to be assessed? We get a qualified assessor down here for 2 days and knock them all off. And we do that at bulk price, the bulk buy price. And we might even get some grant subsidies to support it. So people get an assessment, they can get the data, they can get guidance on where they should be going with the retrofit.
Yeah, so I think the website is Victorian Energy Saver www.big.gov.au, and there's energy efficiency scorecard as one of the subjects. So if you just do a search for energy efficiency, residential energy efficiency scorecard, I think you'll find it. So there's a standard form where they score the performance of the building. So actually, they go around measuring up the windows and all sorts of things to sort of work out your building's performance. And they do look at the fixed appliances, so water, heating, lighting, and cooking and things like that. But they don't necessarily focus on your plug-in appliances. But yeah, it takes them 2 or 3 hours, and then they have to talk to you and write a report and all those sorts of things. So that's why it costs a bit of money, because it is quite thorough.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I've got a follow-up question to that, and I think it's probably for you, Andrew, that you've done a really big. What happened to the blower door testing that is implemented for that assessment of existing places, just to determine where air leakage was going and to determine what was the most suitable upgrades? I think it's going to be part of a mandatory disclosure requirement for rentals and transfer of property on the site and so forth, but also to go by the wayside.
I hadn't heard that. There were some recent reforms on mandatory disclosure, or minimum standards for rental properties, but blower door testing is a pretty expensive undertaking as well. So I'm surprised if that was part of it.
It goes back a while, it probably goes back 10 years, but there was all talk about that's the way it was going to go, and then a lot of training was done, and then all just fell by the wayside.
Yeah, well, this is the problem of trying to get these relatively expensive activities up and happening. So there are a number of companies that will do blower door testing, and a lot of the new houses actually are getting it. But yeah, it's not easy. As far as the mandatory disclosure is concerned, basically, I mean, this has been a very sorry saga. The Council of Australian Governments, COAG, committed in 2009 to bringing in energy disclosure for the residential and building commercial sector. They brought the commercial one in mandatory in 2010. We're still waiting for the residential one. But the Victorian Energy Efficiency Scorecard has now been trialled around Australia, and it's likely to be the basic tool for progress towards a mandatory disclosure scheme. But there are a lot of components to a mandatory scheme in the residential sector, and they are very effective. So it's not that it's gone by the wayside. There is work, people want to do it, and I think the minimum standards for rental and a few other things like that that have just been brought in by the Victorian government show that they are trying to do these things, and at least getting the scorecard up as a voluntary tool and training a whole lot of people to do it is sort of part of the pathway towards a mandatory program, but it's about politics.
It's just that with disclosure would be an incentive for homeowners to upgrade their buildings, knowing that it's a measurable outcome, and then it would have a direct
absolutely. And in fact, the Australian Capital Territory have had a form of mandatory disclosure at time of resale or lease since 1999, and there's been a number of studies showing that a house with an extra star rating is worth quite a bit more money on the market, because once you've got that credible evidence that it's a better house, people respond by paying more.
Another option we're exploring is whether we can offer volunteers in the community the opportunity to do the certificate for training to become assessors. And then we have someone in the community that we go to. So that's something else we're asking about on the expressions of interest, if you're interested in that, or if you know anyone who's interested in that. And there's another issue too of trade, isn't there? Like to take up, you've got to be accredited to do
this.
You you can use local tradies to claim Victorian Energy Efficiency certificates for upgrades, but those local tradies need to be connected to accredited providers that are accredited to, it's a bit complicated, but accredited to create the certificates that then give you the rebate. So ideally, you'd be using local tradies. We would facilitate connecting them to accredited providers so that you can start to get that money flowing into Apollo Bay.
Have we got any tradies in the audience? Did you know about this?
No, but I hate doing paperwork. It's just another certificate and I
Yeah,
really do
you
stuff
wouldn't,
I've got.
if you just did your thing, but you're the purpose of the accredited provider is to do all the paperwork. That's their job, not yours.
We got that. Any other questions? Have we run out already? Kate.
I'm Kate from Colac.
I'm sorry, Kate.
Well done, SOS, putting on this and coming up with your second bulk buying. My question is to Graham and Stephen. I saw that the Mayor and Mondo and Colac Sustainability were having a meeting around a bulk buy in Colac. Do you know anything about that? Is it a council thing or is it a sustainability?
That was through the Geelong Sustainability Group, so the equivalent organisation to SOS in Geelong. I think I didn't go to the meetings.
I didn't go to that one either.
So I can explain that. So the last one we ran with Mondo and City Reserve Solar. Mondo didn't make any money out of it. It was because they had to commit quite a bit of labour to it. This time, a number of communities are joining Geelong Sustainability. So it's a regional, I think there are 5 local government areas involved.
So it's through the G21 network.
Yes, and so there are, each of those councils have contributed money to an individual to help run it, because it's quite a significant volunteer input otherwise. And so it's the same program, it's called the Geelong Plus Community Solar Program. Our marketing's going out with our name on it as well as the Geelong Sustainability thing. But that's what it would have been around. So council is supporting that bulk buy as well.
It's going to run out soon. It's going to come out soon. Do you know? With the
so they're holding public meetings to explain all the details and what the offer is and answer questions. They're holding them, many of them. Presumably there's one in Colac. Ours is June 1st here. We've got one in the afternoon, one in the evening. I'm not sure about Colac. I can follow up Kate or Dan Caldell or anyway, I'll send you some details.
Okay. We're getting close to supper time. I've got one other question, but I don't want to hog the limelight. A friend of mine's nodding her head saying don't do it. So, okay, I'm going to have to ask this because we said at the beginning this was a no-brainer. Well, my brain's dirty to get through all the information and complexity of this stuff. And I feel for the ordinary punter about where do I start, where do I get help? I mean, we talked about Deb's curtains question. There's a whole science in there, and specialists need to provide advice to Deb and people like me who are not science-based. So where, can we have some advice from the panel? Where do we go to for the best advice?
Well, simplest advice.
One of them is a community group called Renew, who produce a magazine called Renew, and another magazine called Sanctuary. And they, if you are a member, they do actually have advisory help, and they have good member forums on the web and things like that to help people. And indeed, I mean, for instance, the Sanctuary magazine, every house that they look at, there's actually a page at the back, at the end of it, listing all the appliances and the people who were involved in the project and things like that. So, I don't know, your library might well help.
Yes, I do.
Yes. So there are some resources like that. I mentioned the Your Home website, yourhome.gov.au, and that's just been updated or about to be updated with a lot of information at a whole range of levels. So there's overview and there's quite nerdy stuff. But look, it is a real problem. I mean, my first job in the energy sector was running Melbourne's Energy Information Centre, and I used to have a team of people who would provide advice, and we would do house plan assessments, and we had a caravan unit that used to go around Victoria offering people help and all sorts of things like that. But governments have decided that websites are much cheaper than live people. So this is kind of where things are. Again, there's a very good website called My Efficient Electric Home, which is run by a guy who is a trained assessor, but Richard Keach, whose book you just won, it helps people, and so it acts as a forum for people to ask questions and learn more from each other. So that's a Facebook page, My Efficient Electric Home. So there's things around, but honestly, we're just not well organised to support people to do good things. And as I say, in the early 1980s, we actually had a pretty good system. We could rebuild those kinds of services if we chose to. And look, Sustainability Victoria's got quite a lot of good stuff on its website too, by the way.
Yeah, so we've got the technical papers on a lot of, when I was looking at blowing wall insulation, I heard that it could create condensation problems, and we've got heaps of research on the SB website about different types of upgrades. I would second the comment, if you're looking for a live forum, My Efficient Electric Home Facebook page is very entertaining, and there's no restriction. People can talk about brands, you can't do that in government. We can't recommend brands, but there's people on there talking about their experiences with different appliances and different upgrades. So, yeah, and you're a resource for each other. That's what I'm excited about. You're all here together. You've got the potential to connect as a community and learn with each other and with your community group. So I wouldn't underestimate the power of all having a go at this together in some way.
And that's a great way to finish, I reckon, on a really positive note, because that's its mandate, is to try and bring the community together, to share and to start thinking and talking about this stuff so we can get on top of it. So I'd like to emphasise the next steps are to express your interest about what you want to proceed with, and we'll be in contact with you. Be aware that the next community solar panel project is about to be launched, so we can provide that sort of assistance as well. We'll put up all the outcomes of tonight's work on the website, all the connections that have been mentioned here. So really it's over to you, but we're going to be with you all the way. So I want to encourage you to feel a bit empowered by what's come out of tonight, because I certainly am. I mean, I've just built a house. We've got 6.7 star ratings, which is, Alan tells me, that was pretty ordinary. So it's back to the drawing board. But you're never too old to learn, I reckon. So I'd just like to wrap up before we go to supper, and to acknowledge our supporters and to thank them. I'd like particularly to thank Colac Otway Shire for the grant that made this event possible. So thank you very much. I'd like to thank the Colac Herald and the Apollo Bay News Sheet, who gave us some very good cheap advertising. I'd like to thank the Great Ocean Road Properties Real Estate Agency, who donated the printing for us. And a special thanks to those who spread the word amongst the community. I found it very much a challenge. Having come from Melbourne only 15 months ago, there's a challenge to how to make contact with people, to get them in on a cold wintry night to a forum like this. and I think it's a lovely turn-up. I think it's all credit to you for coming. But behind that, I know there have been people plugging away at emails. So I want to thank all those people who have contributed. And the three special people who are very good friends of ours, Peter and Judy Hagan and Marjorie Morecambe, who are community stalwarts in Apollo Bay. And they actually sent out hundreds of emails to try and bring us an audience. I'd like to thank our film crew. Thanks very much, Peter, for your contribution, because this is going to give us extra bang for our buck. I want to thank our two councillors for giving up their night. I know you give up a lot of nights for your work, but it's been very important for us to have you here tonight. So thank you very much. And I'd like to thank the SOS team. And I'm sorry the kitchen's been full of women, Gail. I tried to get a gender balance, but I didn't make it. I'll try harder next time. Promise. And to our two special guest speakers, what do I say, but an enormous thanks to you for the effort you put into presenting this show for us, for the information you brought to us, general sharing of your incredible knowledge and inspiring expertise. You're making a difference in this community, so I think you take that all the way with you. But a very big thank you, and I've just got to Nick out here for something to give you.
Oh, no!
It's not a book. Oh, this is very presumptuous when people give you a bottle of wine and say, oh, they assume I drink. But we're going to make that assumption.
You can have an addendum.
Have an
Share it. Oh, it's Bellarine Peninsula wine.
It's nearly local.
Right.
Nearly local.
Low food
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alan.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for representing. So that's enough for us, I think. So take care, be good to each other, and I hope you get your efficiency up and rolling very soon. In the meantime, have a cup of coffee and stay a while. Thank you.
Just say thank you to David too, David, for putting you to the work.